a situation. Perhaps you are a woman in leadership and you started to notice, maybe as a woman in leadership, you started to notice people were treating you a bit differently than they were treating you or communicating with you in the past. Has this ever happened to you? Well, in this video, I want to share with you a mistake that will completely damage your executive presence as a woman in leadership because this mistake is one of the most subtle mistakes that people really don't talk about as it relates to executive presence. But I'm going to talk about it in this video specifically. Now, if you are new to me, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. Jacinta, and this channel heavily focuses in on advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to communicate more confidently and concisely as a leader. Now, what I'm sharing with you in terms of this mistake that people make, I'm going to focus on women in leadership. But if you happen to be a man in leadership that is watching this video or thinking about leadership, regardless of whether you're a woman or a man, what I'm going to share with you is a mistake that you absolutely want to try to avoid because I see people make it all the time. Now, that mistake specifically is to be a bit too lax in terms of how you communicate. Now, if you want to really learn why this mistakes happen and how you can avoid it, you absolutely want to watch this video until the end. Now, on this channel, I have talked a lot about different types of mistakes that people make when it comes to executive presence. I will not go into a lot of detail on that in this video specifically, but I do want to point out to you at least one of those mistakes that I've said in the past. And then we're going to talk about that lax communication in terms of how it can really damage your executive presence. Now, I want to know from you, when you think of the word executive presence, what what are the first, let's say, one or two words that come to your mind? Put in the comments below. Let me know. I'm curious to see what you think about as it relates to executive presence. One of the mistakes that people make when it comes to their executive presence is that they are not consistent. I talk about this a lot on the channel. Consistency is so critically important in terms of how you manage stress, how you communicate with others. Consistency will be the number one killer of your executive presence. So you don't want to make that mistake. But that lax communication, that's what we have to talk a little bit more about. Before I go into that, I want to say hello to Ducky Sophia. Hope you're doing well today. Welcome, welcome. For those of you watching the live video today, one, let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today. And two, when you think of the word executive presence, what are some of the words that come to mind? Let me know in the comments below. All right. So as I mentioned, lax communication. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. Lax communication will completely damage your executive presence. Let me explain to you what happens a lot of times as individuals, and oftentimes it happens sometimes to us as women in leadership. When you are in your leadership roles, every one of us, now let me know what you all think on that are watching the live today and watching the replay. You want to be the cool leader, right? Do you want to be the cool leader? Do you want to be the leader that everybody likes, everybody enjoys talking to? Do you want to be that kind of leader? I would say, for the most part, most people want to be that type of leader. The leader that is very direct, the leader that's charismatic, the leader that everyone enjoys talking to. You want to be that, right? No one really wants to be the leader that everybody doesn't like. They just don't. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. So what happens? Why does this lax communication become such an issue? Well, the reason why it becomes an issue is because what happens is when we are in those leadership roles, sometimes we are caught off guard and we will be at a place where we start to overshare too much information. Too much information. And when we overshare too much information, what happens is we start to say a lot of things that we really don't need to say. Now, I'm going to go into this in a little bit more, but I want to say hello to Silly Berry. Hope you're doing well today. Aiden Houston 4503. Okay, I see you say I'm a loser. Well, guess what, friend? You just lost your place here on the live. Goodbye. All right, so Silly Berry says stop being mean, she is not a loser. Well, thank you, Silly Berry. I deal with trolls all the time, so that is no problem for me. That's why they're hidden from the channel. But I appreciate you, Silly Berry, for being helpful. Goya 67 says, hello, hello, welcome, welcome. So we talked about, for those of you watching the live, I mentioned to you briefly about one of the major reasons why people struggle with their executive presence, and that is consistency. But this live specifically, we are talking about how lax communication can really damage your executive presence. Now, as I mentioned earlier, many people want to be the cool leader. We want to be the cool leader. We want to be the person that people enjoy talking to and enjoy working with. But sometimes we may get ourselves in a situation where we tend to overshare and say a bit too much information as it relates to ourselves personally. Now, why would this damage your executive presence? Because when you start to overshare too much, people will start to pick up on your cues that you are sharing a lot of information that may not necessarily be relevant to your role. And they will take that mental note and say, oh, I can talk to her about this. I can talk to him about that. And they will feel as if it's okay to talk about things that are maybe not as appropriate as it should be for work. Now, I'm gonna go into a bit more, but let me see what's going on in the chat. Silly Berry I5G says you are welcome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Silly Berry. I appreciate your support, friend. Now, as I mentioned, less communication, a lot of times we do it because we don't want to be that leader that people do not like. Therefore, we feel as if, and let me know if this has ever happened to you before, we feel as if we have to say something about ourselves that makes us come across as cool or very, very nice to hang around. Now, you can still be that person that is very cordial, that has that charisma that everyone wants to talk to, but that doesn't mean you have to share every single thing about your personal life. Now, if you're wanting to know specifically how you can do this, how can you still be a very charismatic leader, have that executive presence, be able to persuade other people to buy into your projects or etc., but you still want to have that sense of relatability? Let's talk about that in just a moment. Thank you for the heart emojis. Let me go to the chat. We have Stocky Hymenata 8491. Hope you're doing well today. Let me know what question you have. Goya 67 says, do you have a YouTube channel? Yes, I am on YouTube, so I do have a YouTube channel. Absolutely. Let's see. Okay, so Saki Hymeneta, what you're saying makes absolutely no sense. So I'm gonna have to hide you because that sounds ridiculous. Okay, now, as I mentioned, how can you still maintain that relatability with other people, but still be that person that can make those decisions under pressure? Let me know in the comments below, what are some of your thoughts that you think in terms of how can you still have that fine balance of being the leader that can manage themselves under pressure and being the leader that many people enjoy being around? What are your thoughts? Put in the comments below. Let's talk about it. A couple things that I've found to be successful with some of my clients I've worked with have been to determine what you feel is appropriate for you to discuss with other people and what do you feel is not appropriate to discuss with other people. Now, if you're at a point on your journey, you're thinking, well, I don't know, I'm not quite sure what I should say. Let me give you something to think about. If it's anything that's related to perhaps you personally that could potentially be used against you in the future for whatever reasons, maybe you have something personal you're dealing with specifically that is important, but it's something that you would rather not share to everyone, then more than likely that topic you do not want to discuss. Now, you may have a situation where you have a lot that you want to talk about, but you know that you should not overshare because you are trying to develop your executive presence. You can still share information. You just have to really sit down and think, what do I want people to know about me? And what are some aspects of my life that I would prefer to keep personal? If you're struggling with this, thank you for the heart emojis, friends. If you're struggling with this, then that means that you have to learn how to set boundaries. Many people that I work with, some of my clients, some of the women in leadership that I work with, they may come to me and say, well, I don't really know what I should not say, what I shouldn't say. That means you have to take some time and think about what's important to you and set up your own boundaries. There's only but so much I can tell you here on YouTube. there's always a point in time where you need some direct support, which is why I encourage you to reach out to me for an executive strategy session at exciteexcellence.org. But if you don't know what it is that you want to put as your boundary, make sure that you take some time to figure out what it is you want to talk about. What do you think you do not want to talk about, etc. I'll give you an example. So, for me personally, when people ask me questions about maybe aspects of my personal life, I don't necessarily feel like I need to share. Maybe they're asking questions about my kids and things along those lines. I will purposely answer the question, but deflect and talk about something completely different. Why do I do that? Because I have my own internal boundaries for me personally that perhaps I don't want to necessarily disclose or talk to about with everybody else. And when I do that, I want to make sure that I at least acknowledge the question, but then once I acknowledge it, I'm able to deflect and talk about something else because I have my own internal boundaries that I have set up. Now, I still am being cordial. I'm still talking about whatever the topic is, but that doesn't mean I have to tell everything about myself as it relates to that topic that could potentially be used against me in the future. Now, let me go to the chat. Jeremy Bullwinkle 3972. Hello, Jeremy. Good to see you, friend. High five there. Jeremy says, hello, Dr. Jacinta. I trust all is well. Sorry I haven't listened lately. Been extremely busy. Keep up the good news and God bless. Well, thank you, Jeremy Bullwinkle. It's always good to see you, friend. And no problem at all. We all have a ton of things going on in life in general. And I appreciate you being here and I appreciate being one of my subscribers and really placing some really great comments on the videos. I appreciate you so much for that. And anytime you can catch me live is great. If not, it's good to see you when you're available. And I hope you are able to watch some of the replays. Okay, we have Goya67 says, you're saying, okay, I love you. I say, you're saying I'm the one that did the emojis. Well, thank you for the heart emojis, Goya. I appreciate that. So I mentioned to you specifically, you can still be relatable, but you don't have to tell all of your business. Now, I have a video here on my YouTube channel that talks about how to say no at work. This is a video, it's an older pre-recorded video on my channel. You may want to take a look at that one in my series on boundaries also. Literally for the entire month of December of 2026, we talked about nothing but boundaries. It is one of my more highly viewed topics about boundaries. And if you've ever struggled with boundaries, then this is the series you want to watch. Just take a look at some of my live videos. It'll give you some really good insights to start there. But as I mentioned, you don't have to tell everything. And sometimes, depending on what role you are in leadership, sometimes as women in leadership, we feel like we have to build that rapport with people. We have to build that rapport. We have to talk to people. We don't want to be the person that's just in the corner, off to the side. We want to be the person that is a bit more outspoken and very engaged with everyone. You can still do this. You can still be this way, but you don't have to tell every single thing about your personal life. You don't. People make this mistake. I'm telling you, I have seen this so many times. And let me know in the comments below if you've seen this before. I have seen it so many times where people will just they vibe off of each other. So you may talk about something or someone talks about something that may be a bit inappropriate. And then more people start talking about it. And then everybody starts talking about this inappropriate thing and you're just kind of caught there. When people do that, they're giving themselves permission to talk about this inappropriate thing. It's happened to me many times. It's happened to a lot of other individuals too. And I can tell you that this is one of the fastest ways to completely destroy your executive presence by starting to become too lax in terms of how you communicate. If you're ever struggling and if you're ever wondering, well, how do I need to do this? It is always, you will never grow wrong with this. It is always better for you to communicate in a more formal way than it is in a lax way. It doesn't matter what setting you're in, it doesn't matter who you are speaking with, it does not matter. There will never be anything wrong with you being more formal and perhaps not sharing everything about your personal life compared to other people that do. Now, other people will come to you because you are a leader. They're going to come to you and they're going to want to just disclose their personal business to you. Now, you should feel honored and trusted because this person wants to share this with you, which is great. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to overshare back. This is a mistake that many people make. Many seasoned leaders and many people that are starting out in their leadership journey, we sometimes feel as if, oh, this person told me about this really personal thing that happened to them. What can I tell them that's so personal about me to make them feel better? Have you ever done that? I've done that. Many people do this, which is the reason why I want you to avoid this mistake as it relates to your executive presence. Now, I will tell you that I am writing a book on executive presence, and it is going to be the only executive presence book you're going to need to read. So I'm working on that book now, but this is one of those topics that I'm going to discuss in a lot more detail on in the book because people make this mistake all of the time. Just because someone tells you something confidential, it does not mean that you have to share something confidential back. The moment this situation happens, right? Maybe you're that person that just feels like, well, I just got to tell him. I just need to tell him something. I got to tell him something too. But I'll tell you, the moment that you take control of the conversation and you take control of yourself and how you communicate, and instead of you saying whatever confidential thing you're trying to say and you decide to hold back just a little bit, you will gain a level of experience that many people just simply do not have. Many people struggle with this, which is why I'm talking about it so much because if you are trying to enhance your executive presence, maybe you want to develop your executive presence. There's a leadership role that you're looking at. There's a business that you plan on starting, and you know that you have to present yourself in such a way to where people understand that you are truly the leader. You can handle yourselves under pressure. Your communication cannot be lax and laid back like you're talking to a bunch of your friends and you're just hanging out on the beach somewhere. This is what will cause you to lose your executive presence. And many times, the lines in a professional relationship can start to become blurred if you're working with business associates or you're working with coworkers or etc., where we start to have those very small moments in time where we overshare and we overshare, and then suddenly we find out, oh, we overshare too much, and then there's a serious situation that happens. You as a leader try to readjust yourself, and you find that people are not taking you seriously because they're thinking, well, you just talked about going to go do this and do that. Why do I need to listen to you? So it's something I want y'all to keep in mind. Okay, Jeremy Bullwinkle says, by being in a leadership role, would it be appropriate to tell the person that's opening up to you to not be so personal? It depends, Jeremy, on what is being said. I have been in situations where people have started to overshare a bit too much. And I usually, Jeremy, will just let them talk. I have learned how to just be able to be the holder of information and just keep it to myself. But sometimes when if you feel like it's something that's maybe too personal. So something I would say too personal to me would be maybe something that's going on with them, let's say physically, that you feel as if I don't really need to know about that, then that may be a time for you to slightly deflect the conversation. So how would you do that? For instance, if someone told me something that was just too much information, right? TMI. I don't really need to know all the specific details of what's going on specifically. I would gently direct the conversation. As soon, Jeremy, as soon as I had a second where there was a pause and they stopped talking, I would interject. And this is what I would say. I would say, I really appreciate you sharing what's going on with you. What are some things that we can do to try to help resolve this issue in a way that it will be able to support you and support the team? I would deflect it as soon as you can. But the key, Jeremy, is how you go about doing it. Now, if someone tells you something that is TMI is too much information, a lot of times it makes us uncomfortable as individuals. Have you ever been in that situation? We all have at some point, especially as a leader. And you may feel just really uncomfortable with what's being said. And you may display a certain level of aggravation or annoyance that that person can pick up on really quick because they're telling you something very vulnerable and personal about themselves. So it's important to be able to think about how you are responding. And if it's something that is potentially a trigger for you, remember that, okay, this person is talking about something that is too much information. Let me make sure, and just think this in your head, let me make sure that I'm saying this in the best way. And that's why I would have that conversation, know your baseline. I know, Jeremy, you've watched several videos where I talk about your baseline in terms of how you communicate with people. If you elevate it or if you lower it too much, people will notice something's wrong. Therefore, when you have those situations come up, when someone says something that's just too much information, speak the same way you normally speak, even though that person may have said something that was way too much information. I've had that happen to me many times, and I found that if I still communicate with them in the same tone of voice that I normally would if I was having a conversation. How are things going? They don't notice the shift as much because when that person is speaking to you and they're sharing that information that you think is a little bit too personal, they are in a different emotional state than perhaps they normally would be, Jeremy. They are at the emotional state where they feel as if they have to tell you. And when they go there, okay, Jeremy, when they go there in their mind, they're just going to keep going there. And they may not really notice that, oh, Jeremy just changed the conversation. They're just going to listen to what you have to say and just go with it. That is what I have done many times in those very difficult conversations where too much information is being shared with me when I felt like, okay, I need to gain control of this conversation because this is getting out of control. I could be here for hours. So I hope that gives you some insight to consider. It just depends on the situation, what is being said. What is your leadership tolerance of this topic? Now, I'll tell you for myself as a C-suite executive and as a director, my tolerance is pretty high because I've dealt with so many things. People told me I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of things have happened that have been way too personal for me to know about. But the more you are in those situations and people come and talk to you, you start to build your tolerance. You think, okay, okay, well, this isn't that bad. It may be bad to somebody else, but the more you see as a leader, and especially as an executive, things don't phase you as much because you've seen a lot of bad things. You've seen a lot of bad things and people struggle with it. So I hope that gives you some insight to consider. Just depends on the situation you have going on. But just remember the wonderful thing about these situations, and even though sometimes it might be a bit too personal in terms of what's being said, this person trusts you, and that is something as leaders that is a characteristic that we truly need to value because there's so many people out there that are leaders that people don't trust them a single bit. And the fact that someone is coming to you and they're speaking to you about something that may be a bit too personal or very deeply personal means that there's a certain level of trust they have in you to feel comfortable to share it. Most people don't go around sharing their very deep personal business like that unless they feel comfortable doing it. So I would take it as a compliment, so to speak. But just remember, it depends on situation. For me personally, I just let people talk. I just let them talk because my tolerance is higher now. Now, when I started maybe 20 years ago, no, my tolerance would not have been high at that point. It was very low, and I would have felt uncomfortable. I would have stopped the conversation and did something differently, but I would not have done it in the way I'm sharing with you now. I probably would have changed my tone of voice to change the dynamics of the conversation and to pretty much make that person feel as if I don't want to hear what you have to say. That's why I don't want you to make the mistake that I made. Okay, so I have Hilal Gorgulu. Hello, I hope I said it correctly. 7356 says you are perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Jeremy Bullwinkle 3972 says thank you for the advice. Absolutely, Jeremy. I'm here to support you any way that I can. If there's any situations that come up for you specifically, or anyone that's watching the live or watching the replays, just put it in the comments below. Jeremy knows I will reply to your comment if you leave me one. And I'm here to really support you. If there's anything you want to see on the channel, any different types of videos you want to see, let me know. As I've talked about previously in many of my lives, I am transitioning to a studio. So the background you see now is going to be a little bit different. Things are going to be a little bit different. I will be doing pre-recorded videos that will showcase different leaders or different situations that are happening, some in in different parts of the world and some here based out of the United States in terms of how people are communicating when they are under pressure so that I can help you start to pick away some of these techniques and strategies that you can use in your day-to-day conversations as a leader that will help you to be able to start communicating more confidently and concisely under pressure in these situations. So I'm going to look for videos. If you find a video that you notice and you say, "Oh, I would love to know exactly a deep analysis of what happened here so I can make sure I don't make this mistake," then just put it in the comments below, link it to me. You can always contact me on Instagram at Excite Excellence or at LinkedIn at Dr. Jacinta Lamata, or just simply leave me a message, leave me a comment here, and I'll be more than happy to do a deep dive analysis just for you. Because what I found is that most leaders know how to communicate, but when the conversation goes under pressure, when it becomes a bit more contentious, when there is some debating back and forth, that's when people just forget and they freeze, they go completely blank, or they are caught off guard. And if I can show you what other leaders or individuals are doing when they're in highly visible roles, maybe they're on their own camera, their own video, maybe they're at a news broadcast or etc. If I can pinpoint and show you that deep analysis in terms of what they're doing, I guarantee you it will make you think of those high stakes communication situations a bit differently, so that when you find yourself in that situation, you will remember, oh, this is similar to this situation. I remember I may want to try to do this instead of completely freezing. So that will give you some value. I'm doing pre-recorded videos, not only on world leaders and individuals in general. Those are going to be my reaction videos. I have that playlist I'm working on. And then I'm also going to go back to some pre-recorded videos, and I'm still going to be doing my lives. I appreciate your patience so much for the past week and a half. My live schedule has been a bit off just because I've had a lot of things going on business wise, personal wise, where my schedule has just not been consistent. But within this next week, I'll start to get a flow back in terms of when I'll be live again, and I'll announce that new live schedule that will be the same schedule for a very long time. If there's anything you want to learn more about, let me know. I'm here to support you any way that I can. And tomorrow is Friday. I will probably not be live in the morning, but I will be live in the evening. Friday is Q&A. If you have questions, if you're dealing with something as a leader, as a woman in leadership, as a man in leadership, and there's something you're really struggling with, maybe you have a hard conversation coming up, maybe there's a real challenge you're dealing with professionally, Friday nights are my Q&A. So feel free to stop by live. If you don't are not able to join live, that's okay. Feel free to just send me a message, put it in one of the videos about a topic you want to learn more about or a situation you're dealing with, and I'll be more than happy to help you and provide you with any insight that I can. I hope you all have an absolute amazing day, and hopefully I will see you tomorrow. If not, I will see you on the next video, and just know I'm here to help any way that I can.